This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 93, My Home as Sanctuary. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host, and I am here in my home RCA studios, and I'm working with my producer.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey, My Home as Sanctuary, which could not be more appropriate in this time of self-quarantine. You know, Orange County, Florida is on a don't go outside thing, and except for essentials. And so, yeah, this is now like 2 weeks of this, 2 or 3 weeks now, depending on when you're listening to this. And it's, I tell you, we've been recording shows just kind of all out of order. Like 2 weeks ago, a show went out that we had recorded a week ago, but before then, anyway,
yeah,
we're trying to keep it all
time.
clear.
And I'm sure everyone listening is relating to exactly to what we're saying. I've been talking to some colleagues and members, of CCU Orlando, and man, we're all in this together. I don't care how old you are, how much money you make. We're all in this together, making choices every day, trying to figure out. So many of us are trying to figure out how to make a living.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that's up in the air. But I wanted to kind of bring it down and really, hopefully today's show is going to be really grounding. I mean, this show was directly out of the experience, we're all having right now. And the title of our show is My Home as Sanctuary. And many of you maybe have seen, this is a few months ago, I was really doing a lot of what I called backyard sanctuaries. And I really love doing that. And it came out of my time of spiritual renewal. I took a month, I called it sabbatical. I don't know. Sabbatical sounds like something exotic that you go to Italy and stay in a villa to do. But really, mine was pretty homegrown in terms of that. And I was either home or with family or with, some friends. So, but that idea of backyard sanctuary has carried over into my home and continues to. And so today, our show, My Home as Sanctuary, is really to encourage all of us to really think of the place where we are all the time, as sacred, as safe, as blessed, And so often we think of a sanctuary being a place we go to. And in fact, it is also that. Well, the place we live is very representative of our consciousness, our spiritual consciousness. And so we want our home to be a sanctuary. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about some ways to think about that. And also I want to encourage you every day to do the affirmations, because each day, was a very specific affirmation on this very topic.
Yeah, it's. I think we're all getting a really good kind of, not taste, but we're really getting to know, because we're spending so much time in our home, like how important it is to make sure that your home is peaceful and safe, and whatever you can do to do that, and to make sure that your home really feels like home base. I don't know what I'm saying.
No, I get it. Well, and I'm sure some of the parents listening are going, yeah, right.
Right.
I'm doing homeschooling,
Yeah, exactly.
and we've got stuff everywhere. Well, it's a wonderful time to teach your kids about sacred space as well. And so I can also hear a parent going, I'm already teaching them everything else. So I'm saying this as a parent who's also going to be doing some homeschooling. So, because we're all doing that. I mean, our kids are going to be connected to their schools. But yeah, so our home right now is it's kind of like our bomb shelter, but it's also our sacred space. And I've really learned over the years that home is very representative of your consciousness. I said that earlier. I'll say it many times, probably throughout the day. So your home is representative of your consciousness, and even so is your car. I had a teacher years ago, Jane Elizabeth Hart, say to me, "Cars are consciousness." And I got this look of like, "Oh no," on my face
Uh-oh.
because I was like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean?" Well, everything in your world, everything from I mean, I'm paraphrasing now because this is what I would say now. If somebody asked me this question, I would say, well, everything from the car you drive to the clothes you wear to the way you spend your money represents what's in your consciousness, right? So your consciousness is the sum total. In other words, everything together, the sum total of your thoughts, feelings, beliefs,
Hmm.
and ideas. And so when my teacher had said to me, cars are consciousness, and I went out and got in my car, well, my car was nice in the outside. And
Uh-oh, I know where this is going. I feel it. This is autobiographical.
and then on the inside looked like I worked at a fast food place from the driver's seat.
Yep, the gig wrappers and all that stuff and drive
Well,
through and
yes, it was a busy time, and I also had a dog, and the back seat looked like it was one of those hairy throws you could buy. And so I went out, looked at my car, and said, "This is scary."
Hmm.
And then I thought, "Well, it looks good on on the outside, but the inside needs some work." And I thought, "Wow, what in my life is needing work?" And it was a really nice car. I remember when I bought it, it was actually a Volkswagen Golf. Those were
Oh
really
yeah.
cool cars,
Yeah, those are cool
with
cars.
a sunroof, and it was black. I felt so prosperous driving it. But then once I started looking on the inside, I was like, I am not respecting this. And then I met some friends through Unity Village. A woman worked there, and her husband did detailing on the side, and his detailing was amazing. And so I got the whole thing detailed. And when I got in it, I was like, oh my gosh, I think what that was showing me is I didn't feel worthy to really
Hmm.
honor and respect this car. So I really took it pretty deeply, in my practice, as I'm known to do. When somebody's speaking and it kind of rings inside me, like, like I really hear the statement, I really work it and take it deeper. So for me, even though she said probably many other way more profound things, when she said everything's consciousness, even cars are consciousness, she moved on, but my mind didn't. It was like, oh my goodness. So the same is true with your home.
Hmm.
The same is true with your home, that your home represents the thoughts you think. Are you worthy? Are you worthy to receive? Are you worthy to give? Do you honor your space with good choices and keeping yourself safe? Keeping your family safe, things like that. Is it clean and clear? Is it, as we said in our affirmation, is it fun and joyful? What is your home like now, and how could changes be made to make it more of a sanctuary? Because you can certainly work in a sanctuary. Ask me how I know. I do it every Sunday. That's
Yeah.
so much of my work is working in a sanctuary. So it doesn't mean you can't live in it. And I have been in living situations where the people I were living with, like, wanted the house to be so pristine all the time. I didn't feel like I could live in it.
Hmm.
I'm not talking about that. I mean, you want to be comfortable, you want to be able to live, appropriately in your space, but you really want to honor the space. Let me say it this way, that the space that you live in, when it's treated as a sanctuary, it really begins to give back to you energetically. Everything a home is made of, the wood, the steel, the glass, even, it's all living. These are living materials, they have energy. And so part of making your home a sanctuary is not just living in it, but living with it. Not just living in it, but with it. Like, what is the space that you live in? What is the energy of the dwelling itself?
Hmm.
This could be a new idea for many of us. There's a poet who wrote about it. Her name is Joy Harjo, Harjo, and she's a Native American poet. She's won amazing awards as a poet, and I communicated with her because I borrowed one of her poems for a poem I wrote. So if it's appropriate before the end of the show, I'll share that. And we can have it in the notes, the one I wrote, but we'll see. I'm going to, at the break, I'll check it out. But it's very much about, because I wrote a house blessing for my sister. And then since I've used it, and it's really about learning to live with a home, realizing that there is an energy already here. So these are deep ideas. I just want to pause for a moment. So your home is sanctuary. This is going to require some thinking. I'm going to use the word pondering, wondering, some praying on, some like looking at where there's room for improvement. You might be noticing where you're doing really well with your home as sanctuary. And you might also start finding that, something might need to change. Like, my home is a sanctuary, but this item has not moved in 20 years. Is there something stuck about this? Is something new trying to come forward? So, of course, the reason I'm saying all of this is because right now we are in our homes. Well, I'll say for me, I'm in my home more than I ever have been as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And everyone I talk to, I can't tell you the number of people I've talked to in the last couple of weeks. Every single person is either at home more or completely quarantined. So, everybody says, my God, my time at home is quadrupled. So many of my friends in New York who live in small apartments, they're used to going out and go grab a coffee and hanging out in a cafe and, whatever, going out and meeting friends. Boy, that's not happening there right now.
Especially in New York. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in New York.
Where,
exactly.
Where the decision, where they might have bought or gotten a small apartment because they could easily go out, and it's like people that don't have ovens because they could get takeout or whatever. It's a radically different way of life, but for them, man, they're gonna be going stir crazy with cabin fever.
Well, and exactly, and I think this show could really be supportive because, for so many of us, home is where we stack up our stuff. We come home. I was thinking the other day that a third of my house I don't really even use, but that I'm happy I have it, for when I have people over. But my son looked at me the other day and said, "You know what? We could go with a house half as big as this." And I said, "You're absolutely right. Even with all we're doing, even with all the work I'm doing for here." So anyway, back to the idea, your home is sanctuary. We talked a couple of months ago, probably 3 or 4 months ago now, about how having places that are sacred in your home that include using salt. Do you remember that show, Dave?
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked about it on a Sunday morning too. Salt is a great clearer of energy. So I want to encourage you, if you don't have some kind of really nice, like Himalayan salt in your house, to really get some, because it's a really wonderful energy to bring into your home in terms of clearing the space. Also, if you don't have any sage in your home, I would really encourage you procuring some sage. Sage has been, known for hundreds of years to be a clearing agent in the Native American communities. And it's so funny now in the last decade, science has now proved sage actually clears negative energy. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. But what's cool about it is now is backing up what has been believed and known by the indigenous peoples of the U.S. for ever, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think one of the most important things in your home is to have a clean and clear energy. I think one of the ways to do that is to really monitor the kinds of communication that happen, meaning not a lot of anger words and throwing things and slamming things. This is not a sanctuary.
Yeah, I know.
This is, yeah.
Yeah, I know. In our home, we don't really do cross-house yelling. Now, I can't really, I can't speak to the way, like Larry and Judy communicate with each other, but, and not that they are yellers, but if somebody has something to say to me, and they say yell for me across the house, I'll say on my way. We're not going to yell at each other across the house, because for me it's just the energy is not I do not vibe with that energy, and I don't know if there's something from my childhood of yelling, yelling parents or whatever, and they really weren't. They weren't really yelling parents, but I just will not tolerate yelling across the house.
No, I think that's a great boundary, Dave. And I don't live well with yelling either. And I think what works well for you to create a safe space,
Mhm.
Today's affirmation is, my I think it's my home is safe and blessed,
Yeah.
that came out this morning. And, in general, we all have things that, feel safe, but I think we also have some specific things, and there's nothing wrong. And as a matter of fact, it's a wonderful self-care tool to say, you know what? It just doesn't feel safe to me to have yelling across the house. So
Yeah.
here's the way we're going to do life in our house.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wonderful boundary. And what I can say, very honestly, from being in your home, it is a very peaceful environment. It's a very quiet environment. And
Which is funny because we're musicians, and yeah, we try really hard to let it feel kind of serene.
So that would be a wonderful question for all of us to ask ourselves. What helps me feel safe in my home?
Mm.
And if there's something not feeling safe, that's actually a very important indicator to you that something needs to change.
That's good.
Yeah. And it can be, I want to say this way, it can be emotional safety, which Dave is really what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Not yelling is emotional safety.
Yeah, even though the yelling it's not in anger, it's just, hey, Dave,
I understand.
come in here.
No, I understand. But still, that's an emotional thing.
Yeah.
What we know, though, about communication, what we know is when there's yelling across and then the yelling gets louder, there tends to be a tone and an energy to it. And I think, Dave, that's what you're responding to is, gosh, it doesn't feel good to be yelled at across the house,
That's
honestly.
Right. That's good.
And so, but what we know about our words and about how energy works, when things start to escalate, and let's say there is yelling, well, pretty soon doors start getting slammed. After that, things start getting kicked or thrown. And after that, it's physical violence. And so, what energy are you holding in your home? And so many of us grew up walking on eggshells, so to speak, and wondering when the other shoe was going to drop. And so there was not a sense of safety. So I think so many of us now as grown-ups, I'm saying, people, I'm 51 now. So people in our 40s, 50s, 60s are really in a place still of healing so many of the childhood traumas. And so I think creating a safe place for yourself is very, very important in creating and making your home a sanctuary. And also, if you've never done this, I want to encourage you to, all of us to really honor the space by giving it words of blessing. And by the way, you can do this as a family too. I've done it as well with this home. And I love to do it when I paint. Like a lot of times if I'm painting a room, I'll paint a word with the paint on the wall, like a blessing word like love, and then, fill it all in with the big roller. But if you haven't done that, really take time as a family to bless your home, light a candle, burn some sage. Kids love spiritual things.
Yeah.
But parents, you've got to be the leader of these things. They only learn it, if we teach them. And So I want to encourage you to really bless your home with your words, and that invites then a real spiritual energy. And let me give you some for instances, because I work with so many people, and uh, I've done what we call a house blessing, where house blessing normally happens when someone's new to a home, or sometimes I've done it even at the birth of a baby, where they wanted me to come and do a blessing in the home and bless the baby and all that. And of course, the home before I got there was already blessed, but by me coming, I just represent, bringing God into the home in a real, what's the word, practical and meaningful way.
In deliberate way.
Yeah, very deliberate. And so I did it with a couple, I don't know, a few years ago in their home, and it was really beautiful. We went in every room, and so what we did in every room, we just spoke words of blessing for that particular room. Now, I'm going to be graphic because I like to be specific. So if you are in the kitchen, that might be, the intentions and the blessings might be blessings of fun, of, great food, of laughter, of, having a couple good drinks, whatever those may be for you, whether it's water or wine, and, just connection, so that might be the kitchen. Well, the bathroom is going to have a different type of word, and you can have fun with that as a family. It's
Right.
going to be about release, it's going to be about cleanliness, it's going to be about a safe space for you. So it can be any number of things, but each room you'll start to, you know, become more conscious. Each room has a real specific energy. The bedroom, a word is probably going to be passion, right? A word is going to be passion. A word might be connection or
Mm.
intimacy. And that might be different in the garage,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, I just want you to think about that. My home is sanctuary, and we'll talk a little more about this right after these messages.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. We'd also like to extend our special thanks to Zen Living Realty. Zen Living Realty's mission is to mindfully serve, connect, and positively impact their customers, partners, and community through their Zen approach to real estate. Their vision is to be the most trusted real estate brokerage in the Central Florida area. You can reach Zen Living Realty at zenlivingrealty.com or call 407-800-2717. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
And welcome back. Because of how we're recording this show and the last couple I've recorded from home, I kind of feel like I'm inviting you all into my home. It's a really it's very intimate in a way for me, because so much of my work happens outside of the home. But more and more, I've been in the home, which of course is exactly what the show is about. My home is sanctuary. And I mentioned that um, I'm glad we talked about in the first half about the emotional safety, but also physical safety. It's real important for me in my home to feel physically and emotionally safe. I grew up in a situation where there was not emotional safety, even though there was love and the intent was, good by my parents. I think, when you just get that many people together and that many unhealthy people, bad things happen. So I've been really careful in my adult years, and continue to have my home be a place of safety and a place of blessing, both for me, and for my son, of course. So that's really important. And the next part we want to really talk about, and again, tomorrow's affirmation is going to be My home is clean and clear. And it's funny, everybody's version of clean is different from another.
And I imagine mine and Shannon's version of clean is different from somebody with 3 kids, 3 toddlers.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, yes. So, and as musicians, I find, excuse me, yeah, as a musician, and with my son being a musician and he's interested in so many instruments, if we get our instruments out at night, which we've been doing even more lately, of course, I'm looking at the piano right now as we're speaking, and there are about 6 or 7 books piled on top of each other on the piano because I was showing him some stuff and then I was playing some stuff and then I was, you know, I'm okay with that amount of chaos because it's creating something. But I also know if that stays there for days, pretty soon that energy is going to be taking away rather than giving to the idea of sanctuary.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you in the heat of cooking, you got dishes and ingredients and everything, and while you're cooking, that's perfect. You want that. You want that creative flow. But if you just left all those dirty dishes in the sink and you never put the lids back on all your spices,
Right.
then tomorrow's meal is going to be not quite as not
Yeah.
quite as hygienic.
Yes,
I don't know.
exactly. There's something about a good cleanup. And again, in the Asian countries, the idea of Feng Shui, of course, it's made its way into the US in the last 20 years. I think I've heard about it more than not. We probably should put a link to Feng Shui, which looks like Feng Shui, but it's FENGSHUI, Feng Shui.
I'll have a link to that in our show notes.
Yeah, it's important because it's about the flow of energy in your home. And so the idea of your home being clean and clear, it's like, is it picked up? Are the spaces wiped down? Can energy flow? Well, if you have big piles of stuff all around you, the answer is no, energy can't flow, right? So I think it's a real important part of your home being a sanctuary. As a matter of fact, in my work, because I see our sanctuary at church, as a spiritual home. So I'm often talking with staff, like, how can we improve? With the band, I'm saying, can we clean up some of these cables? Can we dust the piano? Can we polish up the drum set? This is our sanctuary, so it needs to be clean and clear of excess clutter and energy. Mm-hmm. So I'm not doing that to be a control freak. I'm doing that to make sure that we're having as little distraction as possible for what it is we're trying to do. So for me at the house, and I've been teaching online now a few months. It's new for me. A couple of years ago, I was doing it for Unity School. I was teaching inspirational speaking, but now my work that I'm doing my own classes from my home. Before I can teach a class, I have to clear the counters in around the area where I'm going to be at my desk. I have to light a candle. I have to burn sage. I have to make sure I have everything organized so that when I'm going to, be on a call or teach a class, that the energy around what I'm doing is clear. I even had to say to my son, sweetheart, he's 12, almost 13. Sweetheart, it's so important for me to have a clear energy around my stuff. Would you mind helping me pick up? And he goes, oh, no, I understand. I don't like that kind of clutter either. He understood it right away. Yeah. He goes, in school, I've got to have my stuff, where I want it. And so just give that some thought to what are you trying to create? And is the energy around you, really supporting that or not in creating a sanctuary?
Yeah. One of the things that, if I'm in the heat of writing music or doing something creative, then I will, just like Shannon does, when she's cooking a meal or when she's in her office designing or whatever, just things start flying around. But I find there's a peacefulness to putting everything back, to putting this rain stick here, to wrapping up cables and hanging everything up. And it's not just so that next time I need it, I'll know where it is. It's almost like kind of a like a shalom or something. There's a namaste, like this is the end of this process, and
Yes, it is.
it's me
Mhm.
bookending that process and almost kind of sending it off. Is that, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely true. Absolutely true. And again, I think for each person, the way we experience that is going to be different. But I think that it's so important to just honor, this clean and clear energy. I just can't imagine that it's ever good to have stuff piled nearly to the ceiling. You know, Usually that's a sign of a deeper thing going on. And so, we just want to see is are our physical spaces and the things in our physical spaces, supporting us. And um it's if you're paying attention and you're really working your spiritual work, you will probably always be in some process of this. I talk so much about the power of release, and there's so many things I've released. And yet, there are some things I've had in my life for 20 or 30 years. I know I'm still supposed to have them and they're supposed to move with me. But then other things, need to go. And that's part of keeping the energy clean and clear, remembering that all the physical things around us also hold energy.
So what would you say to the parents out there who are, wrangling toddlers and everything, and how to bring that idea in when, it feels like a losing battle?
Well, I think you sing the time to clean up, and you take all the toys and you put them in the basket on the side of the room and say, look, doesn't it look great in here? Now you can walk around and crawl and play and not fall down. Kids do what the parents teach them is important to do next. And so I think a time of cleanup for everybody is a great way to learn.
Mm,
It's a great way to learn about space. And it just takes us being present to notice and to do those things. And we may not even do it every day. If you're working and you've got your kid playing in a little area, maybe it stays that way all week. But then at some point, you guiding them into putting it away and noticing the difference is a great way. We're teaching as we parent,
mm.
teaching as we go with our little ones. And we make the cleanup fun. One of the things I used to do with my son, and I didn't always do it, but one of the things we like to do is make it fun. I would say, let's try to get this stuffed animal in the basket from over here. We throw it and make it a game. And, if you say, clean your stuff up right now, well, kid's going to go, okay, and am I going to do it wrong? And I don't know. Or I don't want to do that. But hey, let's see if we can get the stuffed animal in the basket. Yeah. I've never seen a kid say no to that.
Yeah.
So I think making the cleanup fun and getting the energy clear. And again, I mentioned this, maybe it was last segment, that we had talked a lot about at CCU and on one of the shows about having the nice Himalayan salt in a bowl in your house. And I talked about also involving your little ones in that. And you can use an old jelly jar or a little cereal bowl to put the salt in, and for them to know that that's bringing sacred energy into their room and into their home. Kids love that. And then if you let them put little nature items in there that are colorful. So yeah, I think kids can be involved in every part of that, but you do have to get creative and you do have to make it appropriate for their age.
Right.
Again, if you say, take this stuff and put it over there, they're going to go, why mommy or why daddy? Because I said so.
Yeah.
I'm worn
Disconnect.
out,
Right.
which is, we've all done it, unfortunately, but we don't want that to be the norm.
Right.
Again, if we're creating safe space, if we're working at, not raising our voices just to get a simple point across, um, you know, so that's very important. So what I'm meaning, and I know you've picked this up, we have very astute listeners. I know you're already with me in this and that you're experiencing the sacred energy, and you can already imagine spaces in your home that are going to feel more sacred, as you apply some of this that we're speaking of. I also know from knowing so many of our listeners that so many of you are already doing this. And so then we can just extend it to other areas. Maybe it goes into our backyard so that our backyard area is really sacred. Maybe there's a way that we bring a clean and clear energy to a space that's normally just, an old closet where we throw things. Is there a way we can clean it up so that the energy just feels better when we have to go in there instead of opening a door and going, you know, everybody duck because we're opening this closet door. So, and I know these things might seem so basic and simple to do, and in fact they are. And I find that the most helpful things are often the simplest. So you don't have to spend $500 on a workshop to learn to make your home a sanctuary. You just have to do some basic things for clearing the energy, for removing what no longer serves, from having good boundaries around communication and safety. And then something we haven't mentioned that I'm very happy to talk about is about bringing fun into your household. Some people are really great at playing games, but like board games and card games. Um, One of the things we like to do at our house, we love to play games. We love to play Uno. We love to play checkers. We love to play a board. There's one board game we have that is so hard. It takes 45 minutes to read the instructions.
Oh my gosh.
It actually took longer to read the instructions than it did to play the first game. But we love board games, and the concern I have about us all being on devices so much, I speak about this often because I think we all need reminders to like put it down, is you interact in a completely different way than if you're playing a video game. Even though I think video games are fun. I love video games. But if that's the only way I'm creating fun in my house, that's not really a sanctuary energy. That's just a checkout. But fun is connection. Fun is laughter. Fun is everybody making a cake together, and making, like you said, Dave, a big
old mess. Yep.
Well, what a couple years ago, my mom is 92 now, so she was about 90 then, and I think it was her last trip down. And one of the things we love to make in the kitchen is fry bread. Fry bread is in the Native community, it's like our biscuits or something. Fry bread is a really big deal in the Native community, and I'm kind of the fry bread maker in the family. I'm one of the only a couple of us kids have really kept some of the Native teachings that we've been taught, and I'm one of them. And so I love to make fry bread, and so I've taught my son to make fry bread. And one time my mom was visiting, and we were all making fry bread, and we laughed hysterically. My mom was just saying the funniest, craziest things. And for any of you who know my mom, she has Alzheimer's. And so she said some really funny and profound things with her hands down in the dough and making, a big mess. So to me, that's fun. To me, that's a sacred energy, laughter, connection, creating something together. My son and I playing music, goofy old songs that neither of us know, and are, trying to pick our way through with me on guitar or piano and him on violin or a mandolin, trying to get through it. That, to me, that's fun. To me, that's fun. So video games are cool, yeah, but for me, in my house, that's what creates fun energy, and an energy that I would want in my sanctuary is an energy of laughter, and connection. And finally, I think it's important, and we spoke to that, is we want our homes to be a place of peace. A place of peace. We spoke about that when we very first started today, but there's another aspect to the peace that I want you to consider. If you don't have a very specific place to do your spiritual work, I would encourage you to get that. It can even be where you do your office work. That can be a wonderful way to bring a sacred energy into your work, is to, meditate or journal where you work. That's good as long as you're not pulled out of the meditation into the work, before you're ready. But every house I've ever had as an adult, since I've been meditating, so that's the caveat, people walk in and say, this house is so peaceful. And, I have a nice home, but the things in my home are not like overly expensive. I have a mid-sized house in a good neighborhood, but it's not the nicest neighborhood in Orlando. But what people feel when they walk in is peace. And that matters to me really the most of anything I've talked about today, that my home is a place of peace. It's a place of peace for me, for my son, for my 3 animals. It's a place of peace for somebody that needs a break from the storm of life. That gives me a lot of peace to know that other people feel at peace in my home. I strongly believe the reason people feel that is that there's so much spiritual work that happens. Also, when I go out of town, my friend that stays here, he meditates every day. I know because when I come home, I go, oh man, the energy is so good. And he always says, oh, I did so much soul work because, man, the energy in this house, it just makes me want to do it. Right. So, for a space of peace, you have to be prepared to unplug, to turn things off, to settle in, to light a candle, to go inward, and to connect with spirit. You know, every show that we give, I'm going to somehow come back to these ideas. These are the basics for what make life worth living. Settling in, doing your meditation work. And so you can say to your kids or your spouse or whatever, I want this to be a house of peace, damn it. Or you can create the peace by not saying a word.
Just being the peace that you want to create in the house.
Exactly, by being the peace. And, and when I'm really human, I say to my son, I am so sorry. I want to do that over. And I'm sorry, I'm tired. I said the other day, I said, sweetie, you know what? I know I'm a little, I know I've been a little short with you. I'm so sorry. I'm tired. That's not an excuse, but I'm taking responsibility. And he's like, oh, I know, mama. It's no big deal, But I know that when I'm being honest and I'm taking responsibility and then I'm recentering, that I'm going to create a place of peace, and safety. And of course, that brings in the sacredness every time I'm meditating. Right. So in our show today, we've actually hit every one of our affirmations. I'm going to read them to you just so you can just vibe with us and know what's coming this week. So the first one was, my home is safe and blessed. My home is clean and clear. My home is fun and joyful. My home is peaceful and sacred. And finally, my home is a sanctuary. So my hope for you, friends, as you listen, is that you'll go even deeper in your process. And I'll tell you, doing this one for me right at this time has reminded me of some areas I want to straighten up in my own home because of how much I'm here. And I have been in such work mode. I'm like, oh boy, I see something over there that needs my attention. So Dave and I are always in this process with you. We're learning, and we know that you are learning and deepening your process as a result of tapping in, with us in the show. And we always like to say that, all our shows are really about reawakening consciousness to love, acceptance, and peace. And that certainly includes our home. So our home as sanctuary. So in closing, I'm going to read this house blessing. Towards the end, there's a couple of lines I borrowed from Joy Harjo in her poem, and she did give me permission to use it. So, all right. This is called A House Blessing, which I wrote in October of 96. And some of the words I picked out from Joy Harjo, the great native poet. I wrote it for my sister. O Spirit of all that is, the wind, the sky, the earth, bless us as we look to you for grace and blessing. Make us aware of the materials of this house. Help us understand we don't just live in a house, but with it. The elements, wood, fabric, and aluminum, are all living. They are interactive with us. Help us remember the labor, our commitment to make this our sanctuary, a safe place to come home to. Our kitchen table is where we must eat to live. Gifts from our Mother Earth are prepared and put on the table as a feast for our eyes as well as our bellies. We gossip at this table. Our dreams laugh and cry with us here. Our souls sing with joy and sorrow. Babies cling to mother's breast here. They teethe at its corners. We give thanks. We grow old. All the other rooms and places which we live become part of us. The house also misses us when we depart. Keep us safe in this house. Bless us, O Creator, you who have given us all things, even life itself. Help us begin a new journey here as we are all talking and laughing and feasting on the first sweet bite.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, Shayla Mount, Dorothy Moore, Aggie Payton, Taryn Tucker, and Anna Evans. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2020 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.